In this video, I'm going to be teaching you guys the main differences between the server and the client. So let's get straight into it. So guys, the server and the client, they're both two separate things, but they're also one and the same, as when you actually play a Roblox game, they're both running at the exact same time. So what the server is it's basically what handles everything that goes on inside of the game, and you can kind of think of it as like the authoritative over the client, and the client is simply just replicated from the server. So let me go ahead and go into this server script so we can go over some notes here. So you can go ahead and think about the server as the script right here. It's just a normal server script. This script only runs once, and it's shared by everybody in the server. So it runs once the server actually exists. So if someone joins a new server, all of these server scripts are going to run. And it only runs once. It doesn't matter how many players join the game. And this is the only place obviously you should save or load data with data store service or profile store if you use that instead. And this is authoritative over game state. So basically this is a very important point. You never want to go to a local script and validate things. For example, if the server says a player has 50 HP, that's the truth. If a client says it, well, we can't really trust the client because on the client, exploiters are able to manipulate the code as it says right here. So if you ever want to verify something, you want to verify it from the script, from the server side, because exploiters are not able to access the server side. And this is the main difference between the server side and the local side. So changes to the workspace automatically replicate down to all clients. So if you make a change to the workspace inside of a server script, it replicates to every single client in the game. And you're not able to access the local player because it doesn't have a concept of one player screen. This is basically overviewing everybody's screen. So you're not able to access one single person, if that makes sense. So let's go over to the local script, which is the client side. So basically this runs separately for every player. So let's say we had a local script. So I'm going to go ahead and enter in another local script. And then this is going to be called set name. So this just goes ahead and sets the player's name. And let's go ahead and print out the message, which is hello. And then let's concatenate that with game.localplayer.name. So if I were to go ahead and test this game out, as you can see, it says hello, and then it prints out my username. Now this would go ahead and print out for every person that joined the game. So that means that this runs every time a player joins the game. And each player has their own set of local scripts here. So basically what you can think of, like what actually happens is when a player joins, the game goes ahead and grabs these two local scripts since they are client scripts, and they basically duplicate them and they give them to the player that joined. So each player has their own individual client script, which is why we're able to access the exact player that's playing. So it has access to game.localplayer as I showed you. And basically on the local script, you want to handle all the UI for the person. If there's a UI that is supposed to be for the single person, so let's say for example, it shows their health, we would want to handle that on a local script. It handles input, for example, so like user input service. It handles the camera because each camera is individualized to each player, and visual only effects. So changes made on the client are not automatically visible to other players, and I can show you what this means in 1 second. And you never want to trust the client for anything important. So when you're making a game, if you want to see how much XP a player has to go ahead and save it, you never want to look at it from the client. So for example, if you just check, like let's say the player had an attribute. So let's say player : get attribute, for example. Let's say their attribute was called P. And let's say you just kind of took this at its word. You went ahead and got the XP, and then you went ahead and did something like give them a prize for it or something like that. This is a bad way to go ahead and do it because you don't want to check their data from the local script. Instead, you would probably have to fire a remote event to the script, or actually probably a remote function so you can go ahead and get their real data from the server. So I hope that makes sense. You basically never want to trust the client for making any important changes in your game. You always want to go ahead and look in the server to make sure the player has what they say they have. And this is because, once again, exploiters can manipulate local script code. So let's say, for example, the exploiter goes ahead and manipulates how much XP they have on the client. If you're checking now on the client side, for how much XP they have, so local XP is equal to, and then let's say we did the same thing. Well, this could basically be like 1,000,000 XP when in reality on the server, they actually only have 100. So when you're checking from the client, since the exploiters are able to manipulate this code, this could be like 1,000,000. And then once you actually, for example, give them a prize, like I said before, whatever that could be, like a level up or something like that, You're basically telling them, okay, you're able to cheat because I'm checking from the client. And since you updated it from the client, now you're going to get this reward. So basically you want to check from the server since they're not able to touch this code. So I'll give you guys actually a pretty simple example of what the server versus the client looks like. So inside of the local script, what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to add in a new part into the game. So I'm going to say local new part is equal to instance.new part. And then I'm just going to say new part parent is equal to game.workspace. So I made a new part inside of a local script for the client. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. Or actually first I should probably go ahead and say new part.anchored is equal to true. And new part.canCollide is equal to false. So let's go ahead and test this out once more. So as you can see now we have this new part. And I can see it because I am on my own client obviously. But if we go up here and we go ahead and switch to the server, as you can see, the part does not exist. So for the server, it doesn't even know that the part is there. If I were to go into the workspace now, there's literally no part inside of there. But if I were to go back to the client here and I open up the workspace, we have the part. So you can go ahead and think of it as whatever changes we make in the local script will basically be invisible to the server script. So that's why whenever we're handling each individual person's changes, so for example, their UI on their screen, it doesn't replicate to the server because it's supposed to be individualized for that player only. Now, if you wanted to do something like make a part that was visible to every player, or for example, if you wanted to make a part that was visible to the server, you would want to do it from a server script. So let's go ahead and grab all this. I'm going to go ahead and cut it, and I'm going to paste it inside of the server script. So let's go ahead and play it. And as you can see, we have the same part there, but if I go ahead and go to the server side, as you can see, the part is still there. So if you guys are wondering, well, why can we see it if we made it from the server side and not a local script? And that's because everything that we do inside of a server script is automatically replicated to all the clients. So guys, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys another example of how this works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make a click detector is equal to instance.new click detector. And I'm going to go ahead and parent this click detector to the new part. So now we have a brand new click detector. And inside of my local script here, I'm going to go ahead and make it so that when we go ahead and click on the part, it gets destroyed. So now that we made this code, let's go ahead and play the game. And if I were to go ahead and click on this, as you can see, it gets destroyed. But if we were to go to the server, as you can see, it is still there. Now, this is just me basically drilling home the point that anything that happens in a local script, so this code right here, when I go ahead and say this part needs to destroy when I click it, this is all happening from the client. So it doesn't get replicated back to the server. So in the server, this still exists here. And the same goes if there were two players, for example. So I'm going to show you what this looks like with two players now. All right, so as you guys can see here, I have two players, player 1 and player 2. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is for player 2, I'm going to go ahead and click it and destroy it. And now the part is gone for me. I basically cannot see it. But since we made that change on my client, it didn't replicate to his client. So let's go ahead and go over to his client and see what the game looks like. Okay, so we switch over to the other player, and as you can see, this part is still here. So even though this player made the change on his client, it didn't replicate over to me because I am my own client. So if I were to click this now, obviously it would go ahead and destroy the new part. And then if we were to go over to the server, as you can see, the part is still there because obviously the changes don't replicate back to the server. Now guys, I want to show you this little table that I made here. So basically this is going over what the server is. Let me go ahead and circle that. This is the server right here. And this is basically one instance and it's a shared truth. So this runs in server script service, or it could also run in like server storage, for example. Only the server is able to write data with like data store, for example. And this is where you should store your game logic. So for example, damage or any rounds, or if you want to spawn anything, this should happen in the server since it'll replicate to all clients. So any server change here is going to sync back to all the clients. So all the clients are going to be updated with whatever changes are made in the server. And the server has authority over players, so it should be changing their health, their position, or anything to do with their characters. So now we have the client here, and each player has their own client, so there's going to be multiple clients. And this is kind of like a local view. So the script that's used is the local script, which we already went over. And the changes we want to make here are like UI changes, which are only visible to this player. Or maybe like input handling, so if you want to check if a player pressed a certain key, or if they clicked their mouse, or if they touched their phone. And then also things like camera controls, so any visual effects or anything to do with changing their camera. And then we have like particle, sounds, animation, basically anything to do with the single player. So yeah, guys, that's just a pretty simple overview of the client versus the server. Remember, whenever you want to make changes to your game that you want to have authoritative over. So for example, if you want to have the player click their mouse and then earn a point, you would want to give them the point from the server script and not the local script, because if you give them the point from the local script, then it won't show up in the server. So anything important you want to go ahead and do in the server. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this, I do have a paid program in the link below that basically teaches you how to become a pro at scripting in Roblox Lua. So if you guys are interested in that, go ahead and check it out. But other than that, guys, I'll see you in the next video.